My name is Sam. I use he, him pronouns. I live in Brighton and work part time in fundraising as well as doing advocacy work for people in detention. And yeah, I'm currently developing self advocacy workshops such as this one. Yeah.
So, how did you get into creating these self advocacy workshops and realizing this was something that people might need?
So this kind of originated when I was doing youth work with LGBTQ young people, and I sort of thought it would be something that would be quite good for that demographic because a lot of people had to advocate for themselves in a lot of different contexts. I thought it would be a good skill for young people to get better at doing. And sort of out of those workshops, I realised how much, firstly, people were already kind of advocating for themselves without necessarily calling it a skill or something they were doing. They just kind of had to by being trans in school or kind of navigating different areas of their life. Um, and then, yeah, also realized the importance of sort of going through like how we do this and what happens when you need to do this and you're maybe not able to, or um, the kind of importance of the skill. And then reflected on that in my own life and kind of in through experiences of coming to terms with disability. I've had to navigate for myself a lot through the healthcare system, in terms of getting what I need and being believed about kind of the exhaustion I was experiencing not being normal, and like eventually getting a health diagnosis for that, as well as then navigating kind of disability benefits or like workplace adjustments. And I often just get people in my life telling me like, oh, you're really good at advocating for yourself. And I'm kind of like, I've just had to get good at this in order to kind of get anywhere with a lot of things in my life. And then have kind of reflected on that actually being the case for a lot of people in like queer community, a lot of disabled people, um, neurodivergent people, and how this is kind of a skill that a lot of us need and a soft skill that a lot of people maybe take for granted that they either already have or they don't really know how to do. And kind of thought coming, yeah, bringing it together into a workshop where it can really be like, okay, how do we actually do this and what is this thing and how is it okay to ask for what I need and actually have that listened to and what's the best way to do that, and kind of, yeah, pull this workshop together kind of out of all of these different things coming together and being like, actually, I think a lot of people really, we do really need this, or people are doing this, and let's look at how we can develop it in a way that kind of, yeah, feels good and manageable. And yeah, I think that was the main kind of thinking behind it.
Yeah, and it stood out to me that you talk about being believed, because I feel like that's a really significant factor when it comes to gender identity, sexuality, disability, all these different areas of your life is getting people to believe who you are and what your needs are and what your boundaries are. Um, and so, do you feel like learning these skills is a natural confidence booster and maybe a self esteem booster for people who might be trans or queer or neurodivergent or anything like that? And so, do you see this as more of a holistic process, actually, learning this self advocacy?
Mm, yeah, definitely. I think one of the things the workshop looks at is that you can't know how to advocate for yourself, sorry, without knowing what your needs are in the first place and being able to take those seriously yourself and kind of acknowledging that within yourself, and then being like, okay, I know and accept this is who I am, or this is what I need, and then being able to take that to someone else. So I think that process of believing yourself and accepting these parts of yourself is a massively kind of like interlinked with being able to then advocate for it. And I think especially when you're maybe at the beginning of a journey of questioning gender or sexuality, and maybe feeling imposter syndrome or not really believing that, you know, that could be you, or you don't feel part of a specific community, I think, yeah, it can be obviously so difficult to then ask what you need if you haven't taken that bit, kind of that part of yourself seriously. So I think that's definitely also something that the workshop looks at, and I think something that is so important in terms of being able to advocate for your needs, is like learning to like listen to yourself a bit and be like, okay, this feels wrong or this feels right, like within myself, and I can like listen to myself and take that seriously, and that is a need, and that is something like my body's telling me, or that's something that I'm kind of feeling. So I think that sort of like wellness element, I found for myself anyway, is like very much tied into being able to advocate for what I need, for sure.
Mm. So that's really empowering. And so I imagine that changes how you respond not only maybe in medical situations or work situations, but maybe in interpersonal relationships. And so, what's been some of the biggest changes that you might have seen in yourself or other people as you've engaged more in self advocacy?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think just, yeah, sort of knowing that you can access what you need, that there is a possibility of a situation that could actually be what you need it to be. So I'm thinking, I guess, for me, again, in the context of disability, like looking at different trips or different things I wanted to do and being like, there is just no way I can do that because that is too much energy, or that's, you know, I won't be able to access what I need. And then being like, wait, but maybe there's a version of this where if I say, these are all the things I need to make this happen, if this can actually happen, I would be able to go on that trip, or I would be able to do that thing. And I think that's, it's sort of like you have to let yourself imagine the possibility that no, this could work for me first. And then once you have that, and when you can kind of have the ability to ask for that, and when that is responded to in a good way, like that can be such an amazing kind of experience to be like, oh, actually, I'm being taken seriously. Now I don't need to have all of this unnecessary like anxiety and stress that I can't do something. And yeah, there's like something really empowering about that. And also just like, I kind of see it as a also very tied to like self-care, like being like, I will look out for myself and what I need. And if I can recognize that and ask other people or ask in different contexts for what I do need, yeah, I think there's definitely something really empowering about that. But yeah, as you say, I think it can tie to so many different contexts, like interpersonal relationships, like all of these things. But yeah, definitely, I think there's something really empowering about that.
Amazing. And so, could you just give us a little breakdown of your workshop that you'll be holding for us, just maybe what the structure of that is and how it's going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the workshop itself will begin with just a little look at like what self-advocacy is, um, kind of like a discussion maybe around why is this important, people's like pre-existing understandings of what the term might mean to them. And we'll then look at when do we need this skill in our own lives. So this will be a chance for if anybody has any personal experiences they want to share around maybe a time they can think that they have kind of advocated for themselves in the past in any context. And then we'll look at barriers to self-advocacy. So in this part, we'll also consider intersectionality and how things like class, race, gender, all these things about how we're read and perceived in the world can also impact our ability to advocate, and kind of how we can come around, navigate some of those things. And then the final part of the workshop will look at kind of developing your own self-advocacy skills. So a very practical guide, kind of step by step of how can I do this? How does this work? In different contexts, and kind of a chance for everyone to go away with a really clear idea of a step-by-step guide, basically, for developing their own kind of toolkit around self-advocacy. So yeah, that will be the kind of structure of the workshop.
Oh, we're really, really excited to have you hosting it for us. And so, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you or find you online, what would be the best way for them to reach you if they wanted to speak more about this kind of thing?
Currently, the best way probably would be email. Still working on developing other kind of socials. So my email is keen, KEAN, keenoceansam @gmail.com. And then, yeah, can go from there.
Thank you so much.